go. All right, we're back in business here. Got a few things to do. Part 2, Falclone. So I've been doing a little thinking, you know, a little practicing here for what this thing could look like. So we get some fender flares. They're a 2.5 inch fender flare. I'm thinking 2.5 inches is probably good enough for this thing. I don't want anything that's going over the top. I want it to be clean. I want it to look good. And I'm thinking 2.5 inches on the front, 2.5 inches on the back. Keep it balanced is the way to go. These are just fender flares off of a, I want to say an 88 Volkswagen Rabbit. Yeah, let's see. VW Rabbit. I don't know what year, there's another year on it. But they're about a 2.5 inch wide flare. And they've got a good shape to them, a nice round shape. I'm gonna have to work them a little bit. They have a ridge here. Those 80s model Rabbits were a little more squared off body lines, right? So I like the roundness of the flare, but I want to get rid of this ridge. This ridge, originally I was looking at doing a fender flare on this car, on the Mustang, when I was painting it and building it. So I was going to use them here and do this is about an 1.5 inch flare. There's not a whole lot of flare on the back of these cars, so it's hard to get some meat tucked in. This is a 315 on a 10 inch wide wheel, these anniversary SV wheels. And it tucks into 315 like it's tucked. But that's a whole lot of manipulation in the fender weld here. I had to beat these things out pretty substantially, and then I had to flare them, so I used like a porta power type deal and actually pulled these out probably 1 inch further out than normal. But you can't really tell. Like looking down the profile of the back of the car, you never know it. You can't see it. So it looks really factory, looks really nice. Just has a nice, clean finish look to it. And I was happy with that. Still able to run a 275 up front, 315 on the back. This car does really well with that, and the stance looks really good. It's got some meats back there. You can see that. I don't know if that'll pick up on the camera, but yeah. So I didn't use the flares. I wanted to. I'll still do another one. I think I want to build another coupe and put some flares on it, but for this guy, we'll do something a little different. I've seen a bunch of people out there, even with this car, with the 63 Falcon, do a flare. There's a plastic or a fiberglass flare that have the rivet holes in it, and I've seen that a couple times. There's a couple cars out there, and they look awesome. Don't get me wrong, I dig it. They look great. Thought about doing it myself, but I kind of like a cleaner look than that, and I didn't want to go with fiberglass or plastic on it. I want to kind of keep everything metal. I want to keep it old school, and I want to work it in. The point of this project for me is to test and build out my fabrication skills. I want to push myself to the limits. I want to learn new skills. This is about as in-depth of a project as it gets when it comes to sheet metal fabrication, roll cage installation, fabrication. Just basically I'm building a car with a shell, and I feel like that's going to do what I want it to do. It's going to make me better. I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to have to do a lot of things over. It's going to be a slow process, but in all, I think I'm going to have, I think it's going to turn out like I want it to. That's something that I feel like I do well. I get a vision in my head. I can see it. I can see the car in my mind, how it's going to look, and I know I can get there. It's just going to take the time and some elbow grease to do it. So, although my flares aren't really sticking on there, my tape didn't hold. That's kind of the look that I'm kind of thinking about going with, right? And I think this front probably showcases a little bit better. I'm going to move the arch line. I'm going to move it way up. Like it's going to come up at least 2 to 3 inches higher into the fender well. And that's going to allow me to set the car down much lower on top of that frame. So I get my center of gravity farther down, and hopefully that helps with the handling characteristics of the car. It will definitely help with that. But I also want to kind of give it almost the old stock car look, you know, like the old really wide open fenders, or cut open wheel houses in the fenders. That old kind of stock car look. But I want it to be a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more civilized than that. So I'm going to add these flares in. I don't want the tires to stick out. I want them to be tucked underneath. And I just want it to look different. But it's got to be subtle. I don't want it to look outrageous. When you look at the car, I want it to look like it could have been designed that way with the flow of the vehicle. So going back to these, like I said, this ridge that's on here, that's going to have to get worked. So I'm going to try to smooth this out, round it off a little bit. I'm also going to roll this inner section of the lip kind of up and in a little bit too. Similar to what I've done on the back of the coupe and what people would do when they roll their fender well up. So yep. Decided to go ahead and plasma cut out the floor. It's not really holding anything in here anyway. I'm going to cut out this front section. I'm going to leave the front firewall support and this rear section. This should strengthen the body enough to be okay until I can get actually inside here and move around a little bit, negotiate, so I can weld in some cross beams. So I'm going to do that. It's a little change of plan, but you can see a little plasma cutting here. Almost got this side done. Just got to connect here and I'll have this side ready to drop. This is why my neighbors hate me. All right, we're gonna keep rolling with this thing. It's the next day. Got this section of the floor cut out. I'm working on getting the rear section out. Once we get this dropped out of the car, really, we're pretty much there. We can clean this up a little bit. Clean up some of this stuff up here. I'm gonna cut a little bit more out, get all the rod out. I'll cut some of these edges and leftover flooring that's still kind of connected to the side panels. I'll clean that up a little bit. We'll spend a little bit of time in here just kind of cleaning and taking out extra pieces and parts that we're not going to be using, and getting ready to really dress out the inside of this car and clean it up, maybe even do some sandblasting and some painting in here. I want to have a nice fresh start. So all right, let's take a quick look at what we've got so far. So in the trunk, we got the gas tank out. It was rotten and already unbolted, just need to be pulled out. So get that out. Got some more rust to address in the back of this thing. And then we go through here. You can see that we got this back section cut out, which housed the rear suspension. So it's all gone. Come around the car here. Floors are gone. This structure is still really nice and strong, very rigid. So it's holding the shape of the car. I left this cross beam in there as well until I can get some cross supports up. I want that to kind of help me keep the rigidity of the car. You can see most of it's gone now. I still got some cutting to do up here. There's a lot of rot, a lot of dirt crap in there. So to cut that out, because that's going to be imperative to get that open so that we can decide where the motor is going to sit, how much room we need, and if we're going to move this thing back a little bit. I want to get a pretty decent weight distribution, as close to 50-50 as I can on this thing. So if the motor has to come back a little bit, then we're going to have to adjust the firewall. But number one, first and foremost, we got to get this cut out so that we can get that frame underneath it, at least see where we're at, see where our mounting points are going to be. All right.